Hey guys, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. A couple semesters ago, I took children's literature, and our final project was to compile a presentation, honestly, on anything, and I did a presentation that I'm pretty proud of, and I thought you guys might like to hear a little bit about the research I did, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Essentially, we're going to talk about why all kids deserve representation, the importance of representation, and Rick Riordan's young adult books. Essentially, I believe that his books are a great example of how we can integrate representation and make sure everyone is represented in a way that's really, really great. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So my presentation is titled All Kids Deserve Representation, the Importance of Representation in Rick Riordan's Young Adult Books. So kind of what we're going to be going over is the scope and purpose of my project, my personal connection, the importance of representation, background on who Rick Riordan is in case you guys don't know, an overview of representation in Rick Riordan's books, and then all kids deserve representation and kind of a conclusion. So let's get started. So the scope of this project, I kind of looked at as an author and as an avid reader myself. I wanted to know kind of what scholars are saying about the importance of representation, and my purpose was to become more educated in the different types of representation and to look at an example of an author doing it really, really well. And I believe that through my research that Rick Riordan is one of the best of the best. The importance of this project, well, our world is diverse. Parents and teachers and others need to make sure our children are introduced to diversity to promote a more inclusive world. So we're gonna get a little personal here. When I was in first grade, I was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia and a couple of other learning differences and disabilities. And thankfully, my parents, my teachers, and I worked together, and I had the support I needed to get the help I needed to become a successful student. But for the longest time, I thought because I had ADHD and dyslexia that I couldn't be a successful student, or that I wasn't as smart as the others, or I couldn't be a writer. But reading books by Rick Riordan, especially Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, taught me that even if you have ADHD and dyslexia, you can do anything. And so that's kind of why I wanted to research Rick Riordan's books, because they provided that personal connection for me that played such an integral part in my growing up. And I wanted to see how he's doing that for other people as well. So this may seem kind of obvious, but according to the American Library Association, children are influenced by the stories they read. So if they're influenced by the stories they read, it'll help them, it can broaden perspectives, it can cause people to explore career paths, go into different places that they might not have been exposed to otherwise. This is where representation comes into play. So here's what the scholars are saying. According to the American Library Association, I have the quote here, so I'll read it. Representation allows all children to meet people like themselves and develop an appreciation for the beauty of their culture and the cultures of others. They also go on to say, it provides positive role models for culturally diverse children, introduce children to characters with similar experiences and emotions, and facilitate acceptance of cultures different from one's own. So that's just kind of what current scholars are saying about why representation is important. It helps us, everyone from the smallest person who's just learning how to read to someone who might be in their 60s reading it, can expose us to different points of view, different world experiences. And we should be exposed to them, but we should also be given characters that are similar to ourselves so that we can see all the different things that we could possibly be. So Rick Riordan is an author who currently lives in Boston, Massachusetts. He was an English and a history teacher, and I have a direct number quote here, so I'll read it. 86 million copies of his books are in print in the United States, and rights have been sold into more than 37 countries, and that's from his website. And The Lightning Thief in 2005 was his first major young adult children's lit work. So all of his books take place in a universe where all the different mythologies, such as Greek, such as Egyptian, such as Norse, all coexist and exist in our modern world. In this world, gods have relationships with humans, which create demigods, half god, half humans. These demigods go on adventures, whether it's saving the world or saving each other. So I found this article from a website called Her Campus, and I just fell in love with this quote, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen and also read it to you guys. And it's about his books. Riordan has been providing not only clever jokes, compelling environments, and engaging stories, but characters and situations that are increasingly more diverse and relevant to the world we live in. These stories and perspectives are in a place where kids can be educated and enlightened and given a better understanding of others and possibly even themselves. I thought that perfectly captured the spirit of his books and what he's been doing since 2005. So you might be asking what kind of representation. I went through and compiled a timeline of all of his books, trying to figure out when he integrated different types of representation into his books, and we'll go over that now. So, in 2005, dyslexia and ADHD in a single-parent household appeared in The Lightning Thief, which is the first book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. In 2007, the first main LGBTQ character is introduced in The Titan's Curse. That is the third book of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. In 2010, the first main characters who are people of color were introduced in The Red Pyramid, which is the first book in the Kane Chronicles. And in 2013, the first main gay character comes out of the closet in The House of Hades, which is a book in the Heroes of Olympus series. In 2015, the first practicing Muslim is introduced in The Sword of Summer, which is the first book of Magnus Chase in the Gods of Asgard series. In 2016, the first main bisexual character is introduced in The Hidden Oracle, which is the Trials of Apollo, Book 1. And in 2016, the first gender non-conforming character is introduced in The Hammer of Thor, which is Magnus Chase in the Gods of Asgard, Book 1. So now we're going to go over the different types of representation that are present in Rick Riordan's books. The first we're going to talk about is ADHD and dyslexia. So the first character that has these learning differences is Percy Jackson. He's first introduced in The Lightning Thief, which came out in 2005. Something that makes Riordan's writing unique is that ADHD and dyslexia are depicted as something that makes Percy strong. They are part of the reason why he can do such amazing things. Percy and most of the other characters in the book series who are demigods have ADHD and dyslexia. So the next category we're going to talk about are lesbian and gay characters. Nico D'Angelo, he was first introduced in The Titan's Curse in 2007 and came out of the closet in The House of Hades. He's a really cool guy. I really like him. He's the son of Hades. I don't think I said that. And there's Will Solis, who came out in The Blood of Olympus in 2014. Nico, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, so fair warning, but the books have been out for a while, so don't hate me. Nico and Will get together somewhere between The Blood of Olympus and the first book of the Trials of Apollo, which I love their relationship. They're very cute together. And then Josephine and Emmy are two ex-huntresses of Artemis, and they're in a relationship. And they're first introduced in The Dark Prophecy in 2017. The next section I have is bisexual and pansexual characters. So the first one we have is Magnus Chase. He was first introduced in The Sword of Summer in 2015. He's attracted to both men and women. Then we have Alex Vieira, who is first introduced in The Hammer of Thor in 2016, and they self-identify as bisexual. Next is Apollo. He was first introduced in The Titan's Curse in 2007, and he's attracted to both men and women, and that is confirmed in The Hidden Oracle in 2016. So the next category we're going to talk about is racial diversity. So we have Sadie and Carter Kane. Sadie and Carter were both first introduced in The Red Pyramid in 2000 and 2010. They were the first ever main characters in Rick Riordan's books that were people of color. And something that's really interesting about Sadie is that she's also white passing, so that adds another layer of representation, and it also provides this interesting look that Rick Riordan portrays in his book series. Next we have Hazel, Piper, Leo, and Frank. They are all the main characters of the Heroes of Olympus series, which was 2010. and they're all first introduced in The Lost Hero, which is the first book of that series. Next up, we have gender non-conforming characters. We have Alex Fierro. Alex is gender fluid, and they are first introduced in The Hammer of Thor in 2016. Next up, we're going to talk about religious diversity, which I think is one of the coolest things that Rick Riordan has done with his book series, because his universe is about these ancient religions, but he does integrate religions that a lot of people practice today in his book series, which I think is so cool. So we have Sam, who is first introduced in The Sword of Summer in 2015. She's a Valkyrie who works for Odin, and she's a practicing Muslim. And then more recently, in The Tyrant's Tomb, which came out in 2019, we have Lavinia. She is a member of Camp Jupiter and a really, really cool character, and she also practices Judaism. I think another aspect of diversity that not a lot of people often focus on is different family types, but Rick Riordan integrates it into his series as well. So there are single parent families, blended families, and adopted families. So for single parent families, many of the demigods come from a single parent household because their other parent is a god that is not present in their life. For example, there's Sally and Percy Jackson. Sally is Percy Jackson's mom, and throughout the series she does have a variety of boyfriends and things like that, but she did raise him as a single mother for part of that time. Blended families, Annabeth Chase's mortal family. She's Percy Jackson's love interest and the smartest person in the entire series, I would say. One of my favorite characters. Her mother is Athena, and her father is a human, and he remarries. He marries a human, and they have children together. So there's a blended family. And then both of the families that I just mentioned first appeared in The Lightning Thief, which came out in 2005. And then last, we have adopted families, which were first introduced in The Dark Prophecy in 2017. Emmy and Josephine, the ex-huntresses of Artemis that I talked to you about, they adopted their daughter, Georgie. From the research that I did, I truly believe that Rick Riordan's book series are great examples of what we should all be striving to create and support in the future as authors, as consumers, as readers. I believe that effective representation is when the character is more than what makes them diverse. So Percy Jackson isn't just someone whose plot is about how he struggles with dyslexia in school. That's not his story. His story is about how he saves the world with the help of his friends. He is not just the dyslexia. He's a hero. He's an adventurer. He's a friend. He's a very kind person. He's not just that story, which is what makes Rick Riordan's different examples of diversity and representation so effective, because the story isn't about how someone grew up struggling to read. It's about how this thing or whatever it is that makes them unique is just a part of them. It's not the only thing that creates the characters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I just wanted to say, comment down below if you have any questions. I will try to answer them, or if you have any comments. Have you guys read any of Rick Riordan's books? Would this make you want to read his book series? I would love to hear from you guys. Also, check out this nonprofit. I'll put the link down below. They're pretty cool. They essentially talk about why we need diverse books. So I'll put the link in the description below. I'll also put my works cited, which I'll also put next to me. I'll make it a link that's available down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.